So far, at least 2 killed and as many as 25 people injured in a mass shooting in the Miami-Dade County area in Florida this Memorial Day weekend. By the way, welcome to my channel. This is Bruce the Boss. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click on the notification bell so you can get notified of all of my latest content. Like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Let's get into it. So according to the news, there was a mass shooting where 3 suspects just started shooting indiscriminately into a crowd in the Miami area. So this happened a little after midnight last night, after a second mass shooting in the Miami area left at least 2 people dead with an estimated of 20 to 25 people wounded as the numbers keep coming in. We do have call from Miami Police, Police Chief Art Acevedo, if I'm pronouncing that right, arguing that there has been a spike in rising gun violence in each city in the area and is asking for more stringent prison time and or penalties for these shootings. The suspects, I believe, are at large. According to this, let's see here. They are offering a $100,000 reward for any information that leads to the arrest and or conviction of these shooters. That did happen at around 12:30 a.m. At a scheduled bank hall event on 186th Street in Hialeah, if I'm pronouncing that right, area of the West Miami Gardens area. So according to this, there was in this scheduled event, a local rapper was performing when out of nowhere 3 suspects exited the vehicle and just began shooting indiscriminately into the crowd before fleeing back into the SUV. Now, before anyone starts crying for tighter gun control legislation, or we need to pass gun laws or gun reform, according to the CNN article here, they do get a little bit more specific in terms of the weapons used. There was at least 1 assault rifle, whatever that means, as well as handguns. And I am very critical of the term assault rifle because no expert or politician has been able to accurately define what is or what constitutes an assault rifle. And essentially, any and all weapons is an assault weapon because it is and or can be used for assault, whether you're talking about a shotgun, AR-15. So I'm very skeptical of that, but also before people start talking about gun control legislation, we get to eliminate this or that gun. Out of the thousands of people who die every year in this country, and some tens of thousands of people who get shot every single year, over 95% of all of those gun violent activities are perpetrated with handguns. Rifles of any and all kind constitute less than 4%, So it's really not even going to make a dent in the numbers if you just eliminate one kind of gun, when again, handguns make up over 95% of all gun violence in this country, but I digress. There's just a greater trend of violent crimes, homicides, attacks out in broad daylight over the past year. Just, I guess you can say, exponentially spiked up, increased in a shorter amount of time. Look at this from this data across cities across the country over the last year or year to date. Portland, you see an 800% increase in homicides. Los Angeles County, 148%. Minneapolis, 93%. Atlanta, 52%. My former hometown and birthplace, Philly, 38% increase in violent crimes and 38% increase in homicides alone. One of the many things these cities have in common is not only just the fact that they are run by many liberals who don't seem to be able to police their cities, but I'm seeing a growing trend across the country that is very dangerous and we need to hop off of, is this idea of police are bad and we need fewer of them. Let's take as much funding away from them so that they can't properly do their job. Let's attack and crucify all of them, forcing many of them to say, okay, if you don't appreciate me, if you see me as a villain while I'm trying to protect y'all from a lot of these violent criminals and or felons on the street, I'm leaving. We're seeing the result of said activity. I dare you to try to get a social worker to try to fix these problems. The policies in the direction that a lot of these people in this country is having a negative impact. I mean, look at it, 800% increase in Portland, 800% in homicides, 93% in Minneapolis, 148% in LA, 38% in Philly. If you live in these major cities in this country, it's time to get out. Another argument that a lot of people like myself included made over the last year is as it pertains to the response to the pandemic, how you don't want the cure to be worse than the disease itself. And one of the things that was argued, and I think we're seeing the fruits of that, is when you lock down a nation, a country, a city, state, what have you, you destroy jobs, you prevent people from being able to work, you increase poverty. Whether or not you're providing these people with a little bit of means of money, a little bit here and there through unemployment and stimulus checks, you are increasing poverty because you're destroying these businesses, destroying the economy, putting people out of work. And when you increase poverty levels like that, people are going to get more desperate. They're going to get more violent. You see violence rise whenever there is an increase in poverty and a bad economy. You shut down an economy and people don't know whether or not they'll be able to start working again, whether or not their careers are forever ruined, depending on what field they're in. They're going to get more desperate as resources start to dwindle down. When you shut down entire industries and revenues of whether it be income and or resources, it's going to result in violence. And I think we're seeing the fruits of that now starting to bear out across the country as you're seeing these major spikes. Now, I do disagree to some extent with the police chief there in Miami. I don't know if it's really a matter of increasing prison time, just because when you're dealing with a group of individuals who are so desperate and are hell-bent on breaking the law, they're going to break the law. They know that there's penalties when it comes to shooting. When you shoot indiscriminately amongst a crowd, you know you're either going to likely kill at least one or two people, but gravely injure them at the very least. And if you get caught, there's going to be some jail time already associated with that. And when you add potential of death into the mix, when you're just shooting out into a crowd, you're going to get prison time. I don't know how much more you can really stack on to these mandatory minimums that's going to deter crime. If you really want to deter crime, for me, it's not about adding more laws to the book or more punitive punishment. Not saying to not have any laws at all, but there's another reason. We have to, one, look at the reasons behind the crime. And I do think a large part of that was, again, increases when you destroy an economy. Yes, Florida has been able to get back on track for the most part. That may not be the whole issue for what's happening in Miami, but part of it in the rest of the country. We do need to address crime. We do need to address the failing educational system, because even when you do come up into a state that may have a great flourishing economy, if you don't have the skills in order to compete and earn a decent living, you're pretty much screwed unless if you're on the streets and living a more dangerous lifestyle. What do you expect an individual to be able to do when they go through K through 12 public educational system, and more than 70% of them can barely read or write? I mean, when you go look at the proficiency levels in English, math, reading, science, and comprehension, you'd be hard pressed to find me any state where the proficiency level is above 48%. Most of them flounder around 35, 38%, 34%. Some as low as 14% are proficient in all of those areas. When you have a state where close to 70%, if not more, are not proficient, can barely read or write, they're not going to be able to compete in the marketplace, again, leading to a more desperate lifestyle that may force them into the streets where there may be money to be made. They may find themselves into gangs. And that's producing a steady flow of income and a sense of security and safety within that community. So that's just something to look into. That's part of my thoughts. It's not just all about the legislation. It's what is producing these criminals in my mind. Is it the destruction of the economy? You have to think about that. The educational system and the lack of an ability to compete producing a lot of these criminals. I think of when I listen to a lot of the lyrics of hip-hop artists back in the 80s and 90s and talking about their desperation comes from when they live in these communities. To quote Biggie Smalls, life on the streets is a short stop. Either you're slinging crack or rock, or you got a wicked jump shot. A lot of these end quote. A lot of these individuals don't feel much hope, because when they get out of school, it's like, I have no skills to compete or do anything other than I'm either a great athlete, or I'm selling drugs, but have no other skills. The educational system did not prepare me. You also have to consider the fall of the family as well. You see groups like Black Lives Matter pushing non-nuclear family as an agenda, pushing men out of the home. I don't think it's really a matter either of whether or not you're talking about same-sex couples. I think that's great as well, so long as the family can stay together. You need a two-parent household, period. But we're seeing a rise in single parenting. That's not good either. We need to bring back the family and have a good structure, because there should be no reason why people are on the streets. But when you raise a child single parent, you are 5 times more likely to be struggling. Your kids are more likely to struggle throughout life, not finish school, end up in prison. Why? Because no matter how bad of a single parent you may be and how well intentioned, you cannot keep it unless if you've got this killer job where you're making at least $50,000 a year. You're going to find yourself working so many different jobs, different hours just to get by. You cannot keep an eye or afford to keep an eye on your kid and or put your kid into an extracurricular activity that keeps them busy and productive. Instead, a lot of them end up on the streets, wilding out and acting crazy. So we need to also bring back the home and family structure, I feel. But that's the news today. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Again, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment on this video, as YouTube is suppressing a lot of the independent creators, instead favoring the big, I guess you can say, big mainstream media channels like CNN, MSNBC, CBS, and ABC that already has the support of network television and or cable news, and they're actively suppressing smaller channels. Or not even just smaller channels, any channels. Even Tim Pool is feeling the YouTube suppression. But your engagement in these channels, whether it's through subscribing, clicking that notification bell, and watching the videos despite what YouTube is trying to put out there in your feed and force you to listen to, your comments and your liking of videos really help in the YouTube algorithm to suppress the, I guess you can say, censorship happening. So I really appreciate you watching the video through up to this point. If you have, this is Bruce the Boss Brooks, and I'm out, and be safe this Memorial Day weekend. Peace.